Am I going? Are you going?
You're
I
going.
thought we.
The Spider-Man
I'm going.
meme. Who's
I
you're,
got
you're
yeah. It's
going?
you. Welcome to the podcast, people. I'm Jacques Slade. My man Nick's here. My man Eric's here. This is Cars and Kicks, where we talk about, surprisingly, cars
Cars
and
and
kicks.
kicks.
And
Yeah.
this week is all about the future, both in sneakers. Yeah, this is a perfect sound effect. Yeah, that's an interesting podcast episode. Not that we would do it, but like where and who thought of those sounds and made those sounds our future sounds. Like
You know what?
who was
That is like the question that would come from a 6-year-old. Like Enzo asked these questions that I have like no answers. He's like, Dad, why is the word the word the? Like, who made that word the? Bro, it's 9:00. Go to sleep. Like, so yeah, that is a good question.
that would be a really good episode, I think. And speaking of the future, like a lot of that I think is happening and coming from China. There's a lot of stuff happening there.
You were
That
just
I learned
there.
on my trip to China. So spoiler alert, I went to China for a week with Kyrie and either ANTA or as Kyrie pronounces it, ANTA. So I'm not sure exactly which one it is.
You didn't get
'cause
clarification?
They say it both ways when they're there. There's some
Okay.
people that say ANTA, some people, and Kyrie during his like fashion show was very in the ANTA phase of his experience. And so I'm like, do I call it ANTA? Do I call it ANTA?
So it's like Rihanna versus Rihanna, right? Basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
which is wild. Anyway. The theme song. Darn it.
Well,
Theme
hold
song.
up before you
Yes.
go.
Uh-oh.
I've been
Okay.
working on a little something here. I'm not trying to steal your thunder. There's no lyrics to this, but you know, given your history in hip hop and you know, your MC skills, I wanted to see if you could come up with something off the dome like you do, but with a little beat.
Oh, off the dome. Oh my God, this is
So you know, no pressure. I'll give you a little hint. So I've been trying to, you know, write a lot lately and stuff. So I've been on a lo-fi kick. So if that
Okay.
tells you anything, see what you can do with this. You ready?
Yeah, I hope so. You gotta turn it up. I can barely hear it.
Turn me up in the headphones.
Okay, turn me up. Turn me up. See, this feels more like a spoken word thing. This feels like I would be like, cars and kicks, they go together, but they separate. Separate like the wind from the rain and the stars from the sky. Together, but separate. Cars and kicks, we've got your fix with Jacques, Eric, and Nick. Yeah.
There it is. Let's let the beat
There it
ride.
is.
Let it ride. Let it.
Yeah. That's
I promise
good.
it's almost over.
That's good though.
Here we go. It's almost over.
It's pretty good.
That's good.
All right.
That's really
all right.
good. I like that.
That's
Yeah.
our first collab on the opening. Way to go.
I
Off the
love that.
dome. The spoken word.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Snaps, hand snaps, hand snaps, hand snaps.
Wow. Here we go. It's a
Yeah.
new start for
Yeah,
us.
it's a new start for the show. If you guys haven't been subscribed to us or liked or favorited us or any of those things, you should probably go do all of those things. We'll do a proper version of this little speech at the end of the episode, but I just wanted to put it up here up front in case you guys were thinking about it. If you were already hooked, I mean, between us rambling and the intro, obviously you want to listen to what's about to happen.
Absolutely.
So China. Let's talk about China.
Let's talk about it.
So I was over there with Kyrie and ANTA. For those that are in the sneaker world, you know that Kyrie was having some challenges in his relationship with Nike. They decided to split ways. And while Kyrie was out looking for other deals, he wound up signing with ANTA, which is a Chinese company. And I didn't know this, but they are a massive
Big.
Chinese company. I mean, they own Fila, they own I think it's Arc'teryx.
Arc'teryx. They do?
Arc'teryx.
Oh
Yeah,
man,
they
that's
own
my
them.
jam. When I lived up in Canada, that's like all we wear up there because it rains so much. They do some dope gear. Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
they own a ton of different companies. They own Solomon,
Mm-hmm.
the sneaker company. Let me see. I'm trying to find their website. They own Wilson,
Oh
um,
wow.
the American brand Wilson. What else? What other company do they own? I'm trying to figure out. I don't know why I don't have all of this right in front of me.
Wilson's
Obviously,
big,
I'm
man.
looking.
They've been in the tennis and the golf game for a long time.
Yeah, they own, so they own Arc'teryx, they own Solomon, they own Wilson, they own Peak Performance, they own Atomic, they
The ski
own,
company. Wow.
yeah, they own, the main company is called Amir Sports, and they also own, I think it's Devereaux or Decente. So they own like just a ton of different brands. It's crazy.
Wow.
And I was thinking about it while I was there, and I was like, wow, owning these companies positions them in a way to do things in the American market that I don't think people are really aware of that they can do, from a tech standpoint, from a distribution standpoint, from a design standpoint. They have all of these like touch points, I guess you
Mm-hmm.
would say, that
Yeah.
position them to really make a dent on the American market. But the challenge I think they're going to face right off the jump is, what kind of company are they going to be? And I'll explain. So it's like they can be onto the Chinese company, or they're going to be onto and come to America and be an American company. And while I do think there is, the American public has more grace for an authentically Chinese company,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much grace there is for an authentically Chinese company. Obviously, the thing that they're going to have to battle is the all of the stereotypes about
Stigmas and
Chinese made product, and
yeah.
stigmas about Chinese product that is cheaply made, um, that it's going to fall apart, that it's not very good materials, that it's inexpensive. And my experience, or at least the experience that was shown to me by the ANTA team, is that it's the complete opposite. It's the quality of the things that they're doing is absolutely incredible. The sneakers are on par or better than the sneakers that I can get from any brand here in America, especially the Kyrie stuff.
Wow.
They own their factories, which is, that alone puts them in a different atmosphere. They
Mm-hmm.
were able to turn the Kyrie stuff around in like 8 months, and
Damn.
for those that are in the sneaker world, you know that that's generally 18 months
Yeah.
for a
Wow.
sneaker to kind of come to life. So they were able to put it together and get it out within 18 months using the technology that they have, using their own factories, using the materials. And it's not like they're cutting any corners.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything is on par with everything that you can get here. The other challenge that they face is they don't have a distinct brand,
Mm-hmm.
or even like a brand design. So like a
Yeah.
Nike shoe has a feel to it, an Adidas shoe, a New Balance shoe, they all have this like thing to them that makes them distinctly that shoe. Even if you just saw that silhouette, you would go, "Oh, that's a New Balance. Oh, that's a Nike.
Sure.
Oh, that's a Jordan." Like Anta doesn't have that, and I think part of the reason why they had that is because they've never really had to do that yet. I
Mm-hmm.
think in China, because that population is, reveres the American market so much, they've had to sort of just iterate on American silhouettes, and they could sell those. So
Hmm.
they make their version of an Asics, their version of a Nike shoe, their version of a New Balance,
Yeah.
and it would sell like hotcakes because it has that American sort of feel and flair to it. But it
Yeah.
never felt like, oh, this is Anta's shoe, and that's a challenge that they're going to face, and it's going to be work for them. Like the closest thing they have right now is the Kyrie stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I imagine Kyrie and his team have kind of come in and given some direction in that and kind of helped separate it. But even like the Kyrie shoe feels a little Nike-ish, with the look and feel of it, of the previous stuff that's been in the Kyrie line. And maybe part of it is going to be time of people getting used to ANTA and seeing the ANTA symbol and the ANTA trademarks, and maybe that'll eventually get people to that place. But it's fascinating what they're doing over there. I mean, with all the companies that they own, they have a logistics company as well. I think they were at like 99.79 or something percent on their whatever their KPI is for the company.
Wow.
And I mean, all automated machines. Not like there's people there, but everything is run by machines. Like there's these giant, I think it was like 10-story factory building that we were in, and everything is like those what is it? What movie was that? Whatever. It was almost like in the Matrix, how like the machines were going up and picking things like that. That's what
Yeah.
it felt like. But it was like these large machines going into the warehouse, grabbing stuff off of storage shelves, bringing it back, putting it on a belt, and the belt was just like flying around. Everything had RFID tags, so everything was scanned. They were telling us that when stuff comes from the factory, when it's packed at the factory, it's scanned what's in there, and that's embedded into the RFID tag, so that when it gets to the factory, like they don't have to open it and separate it, because the RFID tag tells the machines what's inside of it. So if they need to
Wow.
pick a box that has a size 7 in it, the machine knows, oh, I can go to box 342, it has a size 7 in it, bring it down to the factory worker, he can open the box, take the 7 out, close the box up, it knows that the size 7 was taken out, put it back on the track, and it goes back to be stored away again. It was just absolutely mind blowing. Now I don't know if that's how things usually work. I haven't been inside of a lot of factories and inside of a lot of distribution centers, but the speed and the accuracy of the way things were going, I was just like just blown away by it. And ANTA owns that stack. So they
Yeah,
basically own
that's
everything
crazy.
from distribution, design, um, and everything else. Now, the other thing, I know I'm rambling here, and you guys feel free to hop in at any time if you guys have questions. But the other thing that they have is they don't understand the concept of Foot Locker, and they don't understand the concept of JD Sports, because they all of their shoes are sold inside of
Direct to
their
consumer.
stores.
Aha.
They have all
Yeah,
of they have their own store. There's an ANTA store everywhere. There's like hundreds of ANTA stores in China. They
Yeah.
don't have to put their stuff in a Foot Locker, because if you want my stuff, you just come to my store, is kind of the way they think it. It's basically it's John Donahoe's wet dream, essentially, is what they have going on. Uh, but so like that's another model that they're going to have to get, that they had to adjust to when they came here to the States. And it's fascinating. I'm very impressed by what they can do, but they have such a hard job to come back to come to the US and to really break into the US market.
Well, see, this brings up. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that you mentioned that are fascinating to me, and it brings up a whole lot of separate tangents that I'll try to narrow down here. But in general, the stigma that's attached to Chinese goods to me is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Every not everything, but a vast majority of things that we use day to day, our phones, our technological things, vast majority of those are made in China. Guess where the vast majority of sneakers are made? Guess where the vast majority of automotive components and batteries and stuff are made? They have had manufacturing down to a science for a long
Yes.
time, and a lot of people don't realize that. And I don't know, I don't know what it is about America and having this thing against especially China, but other countries manufacturing things and them somehow being subpar to what we're capable of doing. Not to knock
Yeah.
American goods. I am all about buying American, supporting American businesses all day long. But the reality is, there are certain things that just couldn't get made if we didn't outsource due to
Yep.
costs, due to all sorts of things. And people don't understand that. So to me, it really just needs to be, people need to be educated, I think, is what it comes down to for that.
Yeah.
In terms of like the designs and stuff, you touched on them being fascinated with American culture and American design and stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of that in the automotive world as well. And it can work, to your point, against them, because instead of having their own voice, their own look, their own etc., they try to mimic things. It was years ago. I think the company was Dongfeng, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. They did an almost 1-to-1 version of the AMG Hummer. You know, the Hummer One, the
Mm.
H1 that was an American military vehicle. They did almost an exact replica of that over there. There's been other companies, BYD, who's a huge company, and they're going to be they're going to have a presence in America very soon.
Very
Um,
soon.
I can't remember, Landwind, I think, and all these guys had vehicles that if you put it right next to, say, a BMW X1, it looked very similar, or the Landwind, I can't remember the name of it, but they they had very similar design influence. I don't want to go any further than that, but a lot of people feel like they almost replicated Land Rover's designs,
Mm.
very, almost to the point of lawsuit type level stuff. So it's, on one hand, they can create whatever it is, they can produce whatever they need to produce because they have the technology and the wherewithal. But in trying to assimilate, I guess, to other parts of the world and fit in, they've lost their voice. And I feel
Yeah.
like that's going to be, especially a company like Anta that has the resources that it does. Everything you're telling me is insane. If they've got their own logistics company, manufacturing, etc., sounds to me like they need to invest in consulting and, marketing, basically. And if they've
Yes.
got the funds to do
Yes.
that, it's a pretty simple process, as long as they're willing to accept the fact that they're going to have to, change a few things internally to help find that voice, etc. So I don't know, man. A lot of these things are it's just I'm going to let Nick talk a little bit because I too will go on a long tangent and not let him get a word in edgewise. But Nick, you're nodding your head a lot here, so let's hear your side of things.
I think you're spot on with the, just like the weird. We saw it in a previous episode, right? When we talk about Hyundai, not a Chinese company, but like Americans have just this offish nature towards it, and probably even more so in the last 10 years or whatever, because of just the political climate of the country, where it's like everything is triggering for people. And
Sure.
to your point, like they've been doing this really long time. I'm sure that a lot of the
Yeah.
people that are making Anta successful in China are also people that were a part of Li-Ning 10, 15 years ago when they started to get things moving in the US. Li-Ning was bigger at that point, and I think the
Yeah.
interesting thing about them coming to the US is like, will they play in the US space the way the US is set up to play with, a Foot Locker, or will they choose to just say, we're just going to do our own thing and we're going to have our own stores and we're going to do it the way we know it works here in China and apply it to the US?
Yeah.
Because ultimately they probably have enough money if they own the full, tech stack or whatever you want to call it, right? It's all vertically integrated, then it probably doesn't cost them near as much to actually, bring all that together in the US. And we've got plenty of empty mall real estate that kids are
Sure.
still going to walk around or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think like, there's definitely something to be said about what Jacques said, where the design language doesn't have to be exactly, tied together with everything, but because they're so all over the place, there's a lot of things that take a little bit more convincing for a US customer, right? Like the skate shoes
Yeah.
that you guys saw over there. That's not a shoe that skate shops in the US are not going to say, "Oh, Kyrie, let's put Kyrie's shoe next
Right.
to, an actual skateboarder." Like that's just not how it works here. Like skate shops are very skateboarder driven.
Yeah.
I talked about it in a previous episode, but I think the potential for it all, and the potential for it to reshape where we're headed with sneakers especially, but even with cars, right? It's huge. It's a huge opportunity. And I forget where I was listening to this. I was basically kind of researching on the Tesla BYD situation, where like, you know Tesla essentially invested in a bunch of uh, you know manufacturing plants there in China, and they're not selling cars now. People want to buy the BYD cars because they're so much cheaper there.
Hmm.
And honestly, if we had access to them without all the crazy tariffs, people probably would buy those cars here. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
like our economies are tied together so closely that like, when things are great for us, things are usually great for China, and when things are slowing down for China, things are usually slowing down for us. But for some
Yeah.
reason, we as Americans don't think that. And I think the one like kind of interesting outlier to this conversation of the way people have this offish nature, the flip side of that is somehow Japan, right? Japanese like products, whether it's cars or kicks or anything in between, are all kind of like highly revered
Yeah,
as
they're
like
put
these
on
like,
Yeah.
pedestals. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I do it. I'm definitely guilty of it. Like there are certain brands where I'm just like, oh man, whatever they do, like it's so much better than what I can get here. I'm willing to pay the extra for that.
Yep.
But it's
Yep.
it's really interesting to see the dynamic and how, like here in America, we just have so many different, like our opinions are shaped so much not by our own experiences, not by even people that we listen to, and like the people that are listening to us are not going to listen to this and be like, oh, I'm going to go check out an
I'm
Anta
gonna
shoe,
give
right?
China a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're just already, their mind is already made up. And I think the last thing as a size 13 wearer I will say about like Chinese brands, just make big shoes for America. Like just make big shoes. Like it's so hard to find size 13 stuff. They've gotten better at it in the last year or two, but for the longest time, like I couldn't get Clay Thompson shoes, even though I know he wears like a 14. Like they didn't make
Yeah.
13s for this
Yeah.
market. So I think that's
That's
another
funny.
shift, but it's also an easy thing when you own the whole thing,
When
right?
you
Right.
own
So
the
I
factory.
think
Yep.
it's just a
Yep.
matter of
That
time
brings
before
up
they get that up.
a lot of things. One, BYD. I feel like I was expecting to see more BYD cars on the streets, but it was it wasn't as many as I thought it was. It was a mix of it was the two cities that we were in. We were in Xiamen and Shenyang, and there were a mix of like BYDs. You saw a lot of BYDs, but you also saw like mid-tier to high-end American cars. So
Right.
it wasn't like you were seeing like Fords and Chevys. You were seeing like
Buick sells
Audis,
more cars in
BMWs.
China than they do in, I think, all the other countries combined. At least they did up to a couple years ago. Buick has,
Oh
for whatever
wow,
reason, they're massive in China. So, and that is like
that's
that
amazing.
mid tier, somewhat
Yeah, that
luxurious American car. Yeah.
yeah, it was a lot of those on the streets, and then like you saw like Chinese brands, and then it was like the mid-tier up sort of American brands. It wasn't like the Chevy Bolt wasn't like I didn't see Chevy Bolts or like Honda Accords or anything like that. And maybe I
Yeah.
was just in the wrong areas, but that's kind of was the feel. Like I saw Bentleys and Land Rovers and Audis and BMWs and stuff like that on the streets
Yeah.
more than anything else. And then as far as like what you were saying, Eric, about branding and marketing, I think that's the biggest hurdle they're going to have to get over. It's almost like they need to do a brand awareness campaign
Mm-hmm.
for like the next few years just to get it ingrained into the American psyche that they can do high quality super dope stuff. Like I had the same thoughts and ideas. Like the Kyrie shoe came and I was like, oh, okay, the shoe's cool. All right, I get it. They did a nice shoe. You can get a nice shoe off. But then they sent some of the apparel and I was like, oh wow, like this is really nice. Like this is like top notch quality, like done really well. The stitching is done well. The lines look good. It fits on the body right. Like they just
Yeah.
did really well. And then we went over there and saw the factories and all the testing that they were doing. And then we saw like the Kyrie fashion show. It's like, okay, they're really pushing the boundaries
Yeah.
of like we can do anything that they can do in the States and probably do it better because they're coming to us to do that. In fact, they were talking about Boost and they were talking about like the foam that Nike
The
and all these companies
cushioning.
use,
Mm-hmm.
the cushioning. And they're like, yeah, we have a deal with the same companies that they use to make their foam. In fact, we
Sure.
had
Yeah.
the deal before them because they're Chinese companies and they show us
I was going
everything
to say.
before they show it to Nike and before they show it to Adidas. So we have the same thing. And they were talking about how Boost is they have a better version of Boost, basically based on like the response period and the energy return and the thickness of the material and the durability of the material. And I'm just like, no one like how do you get that out to people? How do you get people to hear these stories? And I think Eric was right. It's got to be some sort of brand awareness, get the people to understand who we are and what we do. It's almost like a Hyundai and like Genesis glow up sort of situation where
Yeah.
they've got to show what they're doing, which also, again, another point, like that affects their pricing.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
concerned with how to price things here because they're like, yes, we can beat them on price
But then you're
for the
setting a
same quality of
precedence.
product, but then we're setting a precedent and people think, oh, it's cheap
It's a
Chinese
cheap
stuff.
shoe. Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
cheap shoe. And there's like, we can price it the same as Nike, but then people aren't going to want to buy it because
Right.
they're like, why would I buy this Chinese brand when it's Nike?
So
And
let me
so
ask you
like they're
this. Are they did they, while you were there, were there any talks of any other, athletes or influencers or anybody here in, pop culture icons, et cetera, that they've been trying to collaborate with? Because I feel like obviously Kyrie is their first foray into that in American culture, but you're going to need a lot more Kyries in a lot of different departments
yeah.
if you're going to try to start selling things. Are there mentions of any signings or partnerships?
So they did mention that they're looking at a lot of different people here. They're
Mm-hmm.
really trying to find the right person and the right people to align themselves with. They're thinking of Kyrie is sort of like their Trojan horse into the
Yeah.
US market in a sense. Like he's the guy that's hopefully going to open some doors. They're obviously starting with basketball, but and then that's another thing. They only do like basketball and running. They don't really
Hmm.
do like lifestyle or sock. They don't do any cleated shoes or anything like that. It's
Hmm.
very focused on like basketball, running, and like the lifestyle slant. So
Yeah.
I think they're going to use Kyrie as like the Trojan horse to get into the American market, but they want to do running and get into the running space and get into the lifestyle space as well. And I think Kyrie is going to open some of those doors. But I think they got to find somebody in entertainment. They've got to find a female basketball player. They've got to find
Yeah.
another big time basketball player. But it's hard. I I think if you go to ANTA, you have to be willing to put in some work. So they need to find people that I think are more design, marketing sort of oriented, or like those sort of athletes
Hands
and
on.
entertainers
Mm-hmm.
that are a little more hands on, as opposed to somebody that's like, oh, I just want to be a brand ambassador, like cut me a check kind of thing.
Right.
So I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here. What
Okay.
if we look at this a little bit differently? Because Anta's already had they had Kevin Garnett for 6 or 7 years at least when he was with the
Right.
Celtics and to the end of his career almost. That didn't do anything for them here in the U.S. But I personally don't think Kyrie is at the stage of his career that he's going to be the guy that like opens up the American market to Anta selling shoes at a
Mm-hmm.
high level. He'll sell some for sure, but like, what if they don't even need to come to the U.S.? I mean, granted, yes, they're going to want to grow and they want to expand, and the U.S. is a huge market for sneakers and for all the brands that they own. But it doesn't seem like the return on that, if they partner with a Foot Locker, where they're going to have to mark down shoes to 40% so they can leave Foot Locker room to grow or to profit. It's almost like I think the strategy would be to not come to the US as Anta as heavily. And actually, to your point, Jacques, like rebrand it as like, from the minds of Fila, Solomon, and Arc'teryx, here's this new brand. And all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
you have all this crazy new stuff. You can charge a premium for it. And that might be a way to make it interesting, because I don't know, like even if you take like just based on previous, like leaning with Baron Davis when he had his signature line for a few years, put a bunch of money in, jumped in with Foot Locker. This is like 2009 or something. Like I got to the first time I ever shot courtside at an NBA game, like was at that launch of that shoe for the Clippers. and everybody was into it. Like so many people were into him at that moment because he was like 3-4 years into the league. He was just
Yeah.
top of his game. But like it fell off so quickly, and then the shoes didn't sell at Foot Locker, so they basically pulled right back out, and then like reset 5-6 years later with Dwayne Wade
Dwayne
jumping on
Wade,
board.
yeah, I was gonna say.
But like it's almost like you're without like some major change to the branding or to the storyline. I don't know if it's even worth trying to go down that path in the sense that we would traditionally think of it. Now, maybe if they open their own stores, you take away that, like you're keeping an extra 30-40% on every pair, which means even at worst you can sell them for 60% off and make tons of money on them. But
Yeah.
Here's where my mind goes with this, and it's in line with a lot of what you're saying there, Nick. So I guess my initial question, the first part of what I'm thinking here is, do they take the almost like the Skechers route and white label a whole bunch of stuff? Because people don't even realize that. Like Skechers, I think they are the largest sneaker manufacturer in the US, right? Like there's a whole bunch of companies that they manufacture for that nobody even realizes they do. Like, could you take that approach, come here, white label a whole bunch of new brands? I mean, and maybe even don't say, from the minds of Fila and Solomon, stuff like that. Just start from scratch, hire, partner with the right athletes, the right influencers, et cetera, and create a brand out of nowhere, white label that, or brands out of nowhere, white label that, and then years down the road be like, oh, by the way, ANTA's been doing this, this, and this, and have that be their signature line or something like that. That's one approach that comes to mind. The other thought is, if they did go the route of opening their own stores, they don't want to deal with the Foot Lockers and the JD Sports and this and that. I think if you go that route, you really have to spend a lot of money on the customer experience, right? So like if you go into an Arc'teryx store, since they own that brand, very high end. Like know that you walk in there, the staff that they hire, the graphics on the wall, the building itself from an architectural standpoint outside, as soon as you lay eyes on that, you're like, oh, this is gonna cost me a lot of money walking in the store.
Super
So
wow factor.
if you have that wow factor and you create a customer experience like that, or like a Canada Goose, or like, one of these that they do sell in other stores here and there, and Arc'teryx and Canada Goose sell in like Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom and stuff like that. But if you wanted to start with your own standalone stores, if they want to go that route, I think the customer experience has to be so top notch and over the top that it grips people from the get go, because you only get one shot at that. So, Anta, if you're listening and you want to hire some consultants, there are 3 of us right here, right now, that are willing to go to work for you.
Jacques, did you get to go into stores?
Yeah, we got to go into their store. It essentially looks like a Nike store.
Yeah,
it looks like a giant Nike store. Super nice, very well laid out, very well lit. Product is on display. It looks like a nice Nike, almost like a Nike town, like a nice Nike store.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went in, we saw 3 different stores, and they all look like nice, like basically look like nice. And they actually have 3 different tiers of stores. They have like a premium store, and they have like almost like a tier 0 sort of store that we didn't get a chance to see. So they have different levels of stores, and like they have like ones that are like inside malls, ones that are standalone, and stuff like that. So they have that. But to get to a couple of things you guys were talking about, I think the US market, I think they are going to go the distributor route as opposed to go to like the retail route. I think they'll eventually want to get to retail, but like they're using like Sneaker Politics now. They're using Nice Kicks, the Nice Kicks store for their product launches. So they're using those places to sell shoes now. And I think they're going to start getting apparel inside of those as well, which will be great because people get a chance to be like, oh, what is this? Oh, this is like nice quality. And if it like fits the design trends at the moment, I think that'll start opening up some of those doors. I'm, I guess, cautiously optimistic based on everything that I've seen. Robbie Fuller is there. I don't know if you remember Robbie Fuller.
Oh yeah.
Nick. So nice. He's there. He's at ANTA. He's been there, I believe he said, for 6 years.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I didn't
realize
had a chance to talk to him. yeah, I had a chance to talk to him for a little while, and he's like, it's an uphill battle just to kind of change the way people think about things, especially when it comes to the American market. He's like, but we're making like amazing strides, and we're doing incredible things. And like, he was really bragging about the tech, and he was like, oh no, he's like, I got it, I got everything I need, I have it. Like, I can outdo anybody at any of those companies right now with the stuff that we have, which is amazing. I was
Wow.
just like, talk your shit, Robbie.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
You love to hear it. But their stuff looks good, man. Even the stuff that feels iterative, like you pick it up and you get it in your hand and you're like, oh, okay, like I get it. You guys,
I mean, and some of the technology that you were sharing with me just via text, and I think you posted some of it on your feed and stuff too, is it's kind of out of this world. You know, we alluded to that a few episodes ago. We actually talked about it on a couple of podcasts where that's been the thing, that there's been a stagnation in the technological side of sneakers and the advancement in that. And some of the stuff you were showing me with like these carbon rods that move, you know, based on foot placement and stuff like that. Like, I think if you have a combination of technology that is, you know, novel, that nobody's seen before, and a great customer experience, that's a great foot to start on if you're going to try to really, you know, just launch hard here in the United States. So, and, you know, it who knows? Like, again, Nick was talking about just the political climate and how polarized everyone is in this country and stuff. And it is a difficult time to start. You know, you mentioned Japanese companies. I mean, back in the, I guess, when did Toyota first come into the United States? It would have been late 60s, thereabouts. Yeah. And at that point, there was some animosity in this country from World War II left over, you know, with Japan. Yeah. So it was a slow burn for people to accept, you know, Toyota as a legitimate manufacturer in this country. And now look at them and then the success they've had and the other brands that they've launched, the sub brands, et cetera. And so, you know, it sounds like they, you know, ANTA has the wherewithal to ride this out as long as they need to. But of course, everybody wants to find the fastest route possible. So we'll see how it goes from there. But we can talk about this a whole lot longer. You know, there's a couple other things I wanted to get to on the pod before we run out of time. And one of those, and this complete non sequitur, but I'm going to try to link this together somehow in the world of maybe starting something from nothing and seeing it grow into something successful. And that is, look how I'm going to tie this together. Luftgekühlt 10 is coming to LA on Saturday, October 5th. And that is that's something that we will be attending. Breaking news. We'll be out there. Well, I don't know if Jacques, he might not be able to break away. I hear it's his anniversary, so I don't know if the wife's going to want him hanging out with a bunch of dudes at a Porsche show. But we'll see. But we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Nick and I will be walking around.
I mean, you could just solve that by buying her a Porsche, right?
There you go.
That's
a backseat, right? It's practical.
I think that's a great idea.
I don't have Eric money. I don't know who you think I am.
Eric doesn't have Eric money from 2 years ago right now either, so. But no, that's exciting. You know, Nick's coming down from Monterey. We're kind of converging on LA. That's Jacques' hometown. I lived there for years, but I'm coming out. Nick's coming out. We're going to be walking around, checking things out, just kind of being guests, but also, you know, who knows what we'll capture there and who we'll get to talk to while we're there. But that, you know, it's exciting. This did come from, it was the brain, you know, child of Patrick Long and a couple of other partners. It's all Patrick's now. He's, for those that don't know, Patrick is an American race car driver, has raced, you know, for the Porsche factory team for years, extremely successful. And, this was an idea that started, you know, a long time ago, basically saying, hey, you know, there's cars and coffees and there's car shows and stuff, but what if we did this really cool high-end event centered around the world of air-cooled Porsches? And Luftgekühlt was born. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. It's been around 10 years. I may be mispronouncing that. But it is going to be their 10th anniversary. It is going to be at the Universal Studios backlot, which is, they've done it there before, and it's an incredible setting. You're going to have, you know, for those that I've been lucky enough to work on backlots my whole career, and it still doesn't get old when you walk onto like a fake street or something like that. It's just, it's such a cool experience. And for those that have never set foot on a backlot, to be able to do that and have that as the backdrop to some of the rarest Porsches in the world, it's an experience, man. So if shouts out to Pat and all those guys putting this on, and if you are in LA, this coming weekend, October 5th, then you'll have to go out there and check that out and come say hi to us if you see us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be there, but either way, I know it's going to be dope, and I'm a little disappointed. I shouldn't say disappointed. I have other plans, but it would be great to go, especially because I'm so into cars and like this is such my world. You know what I mean?
Jacques has been an air-cooled Porsche fan for what, a long time,
yeah,
right? You know,
gosh, yeah, it's been a while
since the G bodies, right?
G, was it the G?
Or was it, did you come in the
Huh.
964 era, or
I just,
maybe 993?
God, it's been it's been a while. I don't remember which one it was. It's been a minute, but that sounds super cool. And I'm glad you guys are gonna get to go. I can't wait to see like what you guys capture while you're there and the people you guys get to talk to. I think it's gonna be super dope. It's gonna be super dope.
Yeah,
super. Look, y'all can't see Nick's smile, but unless you're watching this on the YouTubes or the Spotify's, but I think Nick is he's speechless.
Yeah,
He's
I'm
so
stoked.
excited.
I mean, the backlot. I didn't get to go when they did this. I think it was 6.
I think it was, yeah.
And I didn't get to go, and probably one of the biggest cases of FOMO I've ever experienced in my life after I saw the photos, because it's just one of those things where it's completely different. To your point about Cars and Coffee, right? Like I get excited to go to Cars and Coffee at like, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's an Applebee's Cars and Coffee, I'm in, right? Like I just want to go connect with people and see people's stuff and hear their stories. But when you're able to do this in a way that it's like there's such a wow factor, and I think that, you know, he's Luftgekühlt, and you know, the air water show in Orange County, I went to that, and it was like, just to put these cars in these settings that you just don't get to see, you know, it's like you just, as a consumer, you don't get to see behind the curtain like that, right? You don't get to see these incredible photo shoots that are done. Even like we talked about on Car Week, you know, so many cars are here for Car Week in Monterey, and brands absolutely shoot like days or weeks worth of content so they can keep posting, hey, we're up in the hills, you know, above the ocean. And I see photos get posted almost every day where I'm like, yep, they definitely took that during Car Week. Like that car was out here during Car Week. And of course, every photographer wants to take those photos because it's a perfect setting, you know, to have those. But to be able to experience that as a consumer and be like, you're right here, like the backdrop is here, the you know, the streets, the, you know, where else are you gonna, you know, take a picture of a Porsche directly in front of the White House? You know, those types of things happen in this kind of like fake world that like normally, you know, the average person doesn't get access to. So yeah, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait, and hopefully we get to meet some people out there too.
Yeah, I mean, for those that haven't been, it's more of a curated art exhibit than a car show. The way that they put these things together, and you know, you mentioned the photography that takes place there. Jeff Zwart has been a part of this. He's been around since the beginning, and again, for those that don't know Zwart, very accomplished race car drivers. You know, gone up Pikes Peak I don't know how many times, and I don't know how many different iterations of 911s. Is one of the best automotive photographers in the world. Worked with Porsche back in the day on some of their ad campaigns where, you know, these really, the one I remember was I think it was a 964 turbo jumping, you know, it was like all four wheels off the ground, black and white poster type photo with some text below it or whatever. And so he's been a part of that Porsche family for a long time. And that in and of itself, to have a manufacturer involved in something like this is big anyway. To have Porsche kind of sign off on it is huge because they're very selective with who they work with. And so, you know, again, I would love to get Pat on the show and talk about, you know, how this all came to be. I know bits and pieces of the story because I was there from day one, and, you know, it would be great to pick his brain and kind of hear what the pitch was. Like, you know, here's this American Porsche driver, and, you know, what does he do? Does he go to Porsche and be like, hey guys, I've won a lot of races for you. Here's an idea I had. Can we do this? Or, you know, is it more involved? But I hope we get to, we'll get to talk to him a bit while we're there. Hopefully we get him on the pod, you know, down the road and maybe talk a bit about the 10 years. Cause it is such a cool experience.
Gosh, that sounds so sick. Now I'm getting FOMO. I know you guys will knock it out the park. So just get a couple of interviews, and I think it's just take in the ambiance and enjoy.
We'll just use an AI generated version of Jacques.
Yeah,
whatever
there's
we do.
AI Jacques.
Post it in
I
there.
might only have 4 fingers or something like that in the AI version, but
Yeah.
we'll make it work.
But awesome. Well, we could talk about a whole bunch of other things, and I think after we visit Luft, there will, and the other events around it in LA, it'll make for great topics for the next episode or the one after that. But probably time to wrap things up. Let y'all get on with your lives, and man, it was cool to hear about your experience there in China, Jacques. Just again, I know we talked a little bit here and there while you were there, but that we're gonna have to follow that story a bit with ANTA and ANTA and figure out where they're going with things and figure out how to pronounce it.
That part,
yeah,
that part too.
But maybe we'll work on the intro. Go down a different road on the production, and we got a lot of things in the works here for y'all. So thank you.
Next episode intro is gonna be crazy because I got something.
Man.
I got something.
Oh man,
I got something. I was ready to unleash it for you guys today, but we had some spontaneity happening. So next week is gonna be popping.
All right.
Actually, you know what? Too, I forgot to mention this. There is a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, rather, with some suggestions for an intro for you to consider as well, Jacques. So.
Oh, really? All right. I'm gonna have to. It's on Apple.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Okay.
And if you
haven't
left us a review, definitely leave us a review on Apple too. And
people are speaking.
Yeah.
We love it, man. We love y'all's enthusiasm. We love the reviews. If you're listening for the first time, go leave us a review, follow, subscribe, all of those things. I'm taking Jacques' job. He usually wraps up the show, but I don't know. I just rolled with it right now. So Jacques, you want to finish it off?
No. I'm just saying I'm Jacques Slade.
I'm Erik Valdez, and here's
I'm Nick Ingvall.
There he is. Thank y'all for tuning in today. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Peace.